That first sip of coffee in the morning. Hey there, welcome to day 173 of the BU 365-day challenge to do one thing every day that improves us, helps us become the best and better, continually improving version of ourselves. One little bit at a time, one little thing every day. This month we're focusing on relationships, and our topic today, let's talk about respect and respect in relationships. I will share 10 signs that you can ask yourself and think about a relationship that you're in. Am I in a respectful relationship? 10 signs of a respectful relationship. Then I will go on to share questions that you and your partner, or you and the person that you're in a relationship with, should at least consider, if not discuss together. Finally, we will talk about different ways, at least 6 different ways that you can show a person that you respect them, characteristics and behaviors to exhibit in a relationship. And then finally, our action item today will be to rate yourself in terms of how respectful are you in a relationship. You can pick one, or overall in your relationships, how much respect do you think you show other people on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not so much, 10 being awesome, I'm always respectful and I meet all these criteria, etc. And then also, secondly, how respected do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10 in the relationships that you're involved in? So what are signs of a respectful relationship? Number 1, being able to have fun together. Number 2, having respect for yourself and for your partner. Number 3, feeling comfortable. Number 4, being able to say no. Number 5, being able to make your own decisions. 6, feeling accepted and free to be yourself. 7, listening to and being heard. Listening to your partner and being heard, or the person that you're in the relationship with. Being able to express your thoughts and feelings honestly with one another. And 9, being able to talk things through together and make compromises. Can't even read my own writing today. So being able to talk about things that come up, because guess what? Life is not always smooth sailing, especially with respect to relationships, whether it's your primary partner relationship, or it's with your kids, or your family, or your friends, or your colleagues, or the people you're in business with. I've never been in a relationship where everything was just always 100% hunky-dory. And then finally, number 10, you support each other in good times and bad, because we live in a world where stuff happens. Think of the COVID pandemic and the impact that it had on so many relationships. Some very positive, some very negative. And some, it just speeded up the processes of what was inevitable. Okay, so those are signs of a respectful relationship. So you can ask yourself, am I experiencing those things and giving those things in the relationship that I'm in, or in a relationship that I might be struggling with? What of those components might be missing in a relationship with a coworker? You might be butting heads, and maybe that list helps us to see where we might be missing the boat. Maybe we're not acting particularly respectful toward them. I know it's hard to always be a certain way. It's hard to always be respectful. We talked about kindness yesterday, and I will contend it's easier to be kind and give people the benefit of the doubt than it is to be cynical and negative and mean and ornery. But each of us are different, right? Sometimes it feels good for people to be ornery. I'll admit, sometimes I like to feel ornery, but not too often. All right, next let's talk about questions that if you're in a relationship, you should at least ponder, and if possible, if it's a really important relationship to you, have the discussion with the other person that you want to be in the relationship with, or are in the relationship with. So what are these questions that you should ask? There's 8 of them. Number 1, what does respect mean to you, and what does it mean to your partner? Do you know what respect is to your boss? Do you know what respect is to you, so you can communicate it to your boss? Do you know what respect looks like to you in your primary or partner relationship? I know that I always know when I feel disrespected, but I might not be able to put into words what that actually looks like to me. But I think it's a lot of these things that we're going to talk about, ways to show your partner respect in a minute. So what does respect mean to you? This is one of my biggest things over probably the last 5 to 7 years is, what do things mean to most people? What do they mean to some people? But most importantly, what do they mean to me? What does success mean to me? What does failure mean to me? What does opportunity look like to me? What does hope, joy, fear, struggle, every word, everything we say, and especially emotional words, what do they mean to me? Because that's the most important thing, because that's how I'll show up in the world. So have that conversation. What does respect look like to your partner? Because it's like the love languages. You might be looking for love in a certain way, in a primary way, and your partner's looking for it in an entirely different way. So when you're giving love in the way you like to receive love, he might totally be missing the mark when it comes to the person that you're in a relationship with. How do I know? Been there, done that. We like to be loved the way we like to be loved, but other people want to be loved the way they want to be loved, right? Number 2, if your definition is different, how are you going to manage this? How are you going to manage if you have different love languages? Well, you're going to get better at giving the person what they need, and they're going to get better at giving you what you need if you want the relationship to last. Number 3, what are the boundaries in the person that you're in a relationship with? So at work, for example, there's probably different relationship boundaries than there are with your kids or with your family or with your friends or with your significant other. But what are those boundaries? Do you know what they are? Does your partner, does the person you're in the relationship know what they are? One of the first things I do whenever I'm working with someone new, and whenever I was in a new job in corporate America or I had a new employee in corporate America, is we sat down and we shared expectations. And in those expectations are, well, what do I expect from you? What do you expect from me? And that is a sign of respect. I respect that you were hired to do this job. You have all these skills and abilities, but how you do it, it's up to you within the guidelines of the results that we need to get. So have those conversations. Number 4, do you feel comfortable opening up to your partner or to the person you're in a relationship with about your feelings? And again, it depends on the relationship, right? I would open up with my significant other about more feelings than I would ever open up to in a corporate setting with my boss or in a work setting with my boss or with customers, right? What we share is specific to the relationship, especially when it comes to our feelings. Number 5, do you trust your partner? Trust is, and we talked about trust is a huge issue in relationships, whatever the relationship is. Do I trust my boss? Am I in a, do we have common values? Do we have common goals that we're working toward for the organization? A lot of people in the world have their own agenda, and it may or may not be consistent with the organization or the relationship or whatever else. And you have to understand and know what that is, and if you can go along with that or not. Number 6, what are clear signs of respect and disrespect? And then give examples. For example, I was in a relationship where my significant other disregarded my feelings pretty much totally, was very controlling, didn't care about my goals and objectives, only cared about their life and how the world and how the relationship impacted them and the things they wanted to do when they wanted to do them. To me, those were all signs of disrespect and led to lots of fights and lots of arguments before I knew that it was my responsibility to 100% set my boundaries and stand up for myself. So how do I know? And ask yourself, what are signs of respect? What are signs of disrespect to me? Because sometimes what would be disrespectful to one person isn't disrespectful to another, and you have to know what those things are for you. 7, how will you handle it if one of the parties is disrespectful? How are you come up in advance and agree with what are the ramifications of disrespect? If I'm in a work setting and one of the people that report to me interrupt me in a meeting, disrespect me in a meeting, talk over me in a meeting, or disagree after we've already agreed on a position and attack we were taking on a project, in front of other people, all of those are signs of disrespect and are going to have ramifications. The person's at least going to have a conversation with me and get feedback, right? That's probably what's going to happen. And then if it happens again, that person's probably not going to work for me anymore. They're probably going to be transferred, especially when we've agreed to something in advance. If we agree to something in a relationship and you change your mind, you tell me first before you tell other people. That's to me is disrespectful. And then finally, number 8, what behavior or behaviors is considered non-negotiable? To me, in my primary personal significant other relationship, infidelity is non-negotiable. That's a deal breaker for me, and it may or may not be for other people, but that is an example of one that's a deal breaker for me, because that is the ultimate sign of disrespect, in my opinion. It might not be to other people's, but it is in my experience and in my opinion. So those questions, at least ask yourself those questions and know what's important to you with respect to the topic of respect. And then let's talk about different ways that you can show your significant other, your partner, your work partners, anyone you're in a relationship. How about your kids? How often do we disrespect our kids by bossing them around, forgetting that they're human beings and they have feelings and desires and goals and objectives too, no matter how little they are? I know my kids, I'm sure I did a worse job with this than I'm doing with my granddaughters. I am really willing to step back and let them be themselves and be the amazing little humans that they are. And I guarantee you with my kids, I was a lot stricter and a lot more of a, what would I call it? Not slave driver, but I had very high expectations for my kids when it came to school and how they treated one another, etc., and how they treated other people. And I guess I'm probably much more open to letting my little granddaughters be themselves and to encourage them to be the best version of the person they can be. Probably because I've grown and developed and am a lot more open and willing to learn than I was when I was my kid's mom. Still their mom, but when I was a younger version of myself. So what are some ways that we can show a person respect? Number 1, honoring their boundaries, right? Knowing what they are, asking if you don't know, being considerate and kind, and then honoring the boundaries. Once you know what someone's boundary is, you just don't cross it if you want to be in a relationship with them. Supporting their passions, their goals, their interests, number 2. Number 3, talking kindly of them to others. How many of us have had significant others that bitched about us to their friends or family behind our backs? Obviously, I've got experience with that one. Number 4, hold them in high regard through actions, behaviors, and words. I grew up with parents that were an awesome example of a healthy, loving relationship. And I didn't recreate that in my own life, and I kick myself every day for that because it's my responsibility to have chosen better for myself. I'm obviously divorced. But my parents were a perfect example of how to love one another, how to get along, understanding one another's boundaries, supporting one another, talking positively about the other, and always being their best friend and ally, even though they would argue. I don't even remember if my parents argued on a handful of times. Mostly they would disagree over us girls and what we should or should not be spending on. But they were a perfect example, and they held each other in high regard and were each other's best friends their entire lives. My dad passed away about 7 years ago now, and I know my mom misses him with all her heart every day. He was her best friend for, they were married 70 years. So, no, not 70 years when he passed away. Probably close to 60, because my mom's 85. Anyway, and she got married when she was like 21, maybe 20, 21. Number 5, strengthen communication. I don't think there's very many things that communication won't improve. That's why we're going to spend a whole month focusing on it. 6, be honest and responsible for your actions. Take responsibility for your behavior, your actions. When you make a mistake, say you're sorry. I think these are all things that we learn in kindergarten, but we forget about as we get older, and we see examples of less than good kindergarten behavior, and we start to adopt some of those habits, thinking of, well, if that person does it, then we can do it too. Not the best way to be. Always compare yourself to people that are better than you, not people that are worse than you. That's one of my rules of the world and advice. Okay, so what are we doing for an action item today? We're thinking about our relationships and whatever relationships you want, and we're asking ourselves on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being pretty awful, not so much, 10 being awesome, super respectful as much as humanly possible. How respectful are we in our relationships? Because we have to give what we want to receive. And how respected do we feel in some of our relationships right now on a scale of 1 to 10? Maybe with your boss right now, you feel like you're a 4. You're not respected very much, but maybe you're only a 5 on the respect level. So you know that if you increase your respect toward your boss, you'll get better respect in return. And if you don't, maybe it's time to rethink that relationship and that role. I've had to do that in the past. We all have. So that's it. Any questions, hit me up. Just ask. Otherwise, I'll be with you tomorrow. We will talk about another relationship-related topic for this month, as we're doing one thing every day to become a better version of ourselves. All right, have an awesome day. Go respect yourself for sure, and other people as well.